Our Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here after last night's from the Denver Nuggets. Not really surprised that they didn't get involved in the first round. I actually predicted it on several occasions, and especially when you look at the amount of assets that they had to sort of get involved in things, this makes perfect sense. This is not a surprise, and honestly, it's not that bad. I know that folks are upset that they didn't have a pick. Don't worry, don't be too stressed. There are still plenty of things that they can do throughout the rest of the summer that I think that they should do. um, Whether they do that or not is up to them. On today's episode, we'll talk about the first round of the NBA draft last night. The second round is tonight. We'll discuss if the Nuggets will get involved with that one either. And then we'll talk about the rest of the NBA and how things, there were some interesting things, there were some crazy things, and then there were some things that were it's just kind of boring by the end of it. Thought that Brooklyn would get a little bit crazy, and they did. They drafted all five of their first round picks. That was surprising to say the least, and I don't think that all of them were good. But then again, I'm not the foremost expert on the NBA draft this year. With the Nuggets not having a pick, I didn't really fully invest myself into the prospect game. That's not something that I thought about, and I don't really blame myself for it either, because last night was pretty boring in the NBA draft media room at Ball Arena. It was myself. It was Bennett Durando over at the Denver Post. It was Vinny Benedetto and Tyler King of the Denver Gazette. Had a couple of other folks in and out of the room as well, but just nothing crazy. And we were only there in the event that something might have happened. And I wrote a little bit about it on milehighsports.com if you're interested in that actual perspective. But for the most part, I would say this Nuggets period is not going to be defined by the 2025 NBA draft. The pick that Denver traded back in 2021 in order to get Aaron Gordon was the pick that was used tonight on Jace Richardson. So I'm not worried. Like, this is not something that Nuggets fans should be that worried about. Denver would have had the 25th pick in the draft this year. And while it is nice, while it is interesting to think about the different things that they could do, the players that they could get, I think the more important thing going forward is how they handle the free agency and the rest of the roster, not necessarily continuing to add young talent in the mid to late 20s, which is the thing that they've done from 2022, 2023, 2024. That to me is the really most important thing in all of this, is to make sure that Denver's core is together, is to make sure that their main free agents are together, and to doing that and maximizing that particular aspect of things. Because no matter who you draft in this draft, I mean, other than Cooper Flagg, who will probably be great immediately, no matter who you draft, you're not going to get anything crazy in the first year. You're just not. And while there are players that could develop and be starters and be good, there will probably be several that are better than Jamal Murray or Michael Porter or Aaron Gordon or Christian Brown or whoever. There will probably be multiple guys who are better than those guys. That just will. But it's not going to be for a little bit. And Nikola Jokic's time is now. So it has always kind of, it's always kind of frustrated me with the way that fans, and like I understand it. I was there doing my job last night. Was it boring? Yes. I was there just in case something actually happened. But fans went overboard, I think, last night in terms of being like, oh, I can't believe they didn't have a draft pick. They don't have a draft pick in the first round. Oh my God. This is the natural reality for any team that trades to get better. It's the natural kind of price point for any team that trades to improve. Take the Oklahoma City Thunder out of it, because they are an aberration. They are not the team that you should be trying to emulate. They are a team that hit everything effectively, and even they had some misses, but because of the way they managed things, they got very lucky on the Paul George deal when they made it back in 2019. They had like 5 first round picks out of that, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who just turned into the MVP of the league. Like, that's not something that anybody could have foreseen. Anybody could have expected. So I wouldn't necessarily be so super focused on the first round of this draft that you miss the forest through the trees. The Nuggets are still a very good team, and it's not because they drafted in the first round each of the last few years. It's because they have the core. It's because they traded one of their picks. It just happened to be this one tonight. So I would really try to emphasize that, and I tend to think that Nuggets fans just have to remember how this thing should go. Um, Now, will they get involved in other stuff? We'll talk about that next. We'll talk about that on the other side of the in the second segment. But for now, let's talk about what actually happened in the first round, because it was kind of boring just to talk about what the Nuggets did or didn't do in this first round because they were very comfortable. I was actually told relatively early in the process to do not expect anything. Do not expect anything. And lo and behold, they were right. Basically, um, after Cooper Flag and Dylan Harper, you would expect things to get a little bit more crazy around the NBA. That didn't actually happen. Um, that didn't actually happen until kind of later, where I mean, let me just pull up the draft order so I am not making a fool of myself over here. Number 3 pick, VJ Edgecombe, not really a surprise. Number 4 pick, uh, Con Knipple. That one's like super low ceiling kind of thing from Charlotte. Charlotte's just never going to be good. I don't really think that we have to spend much time on them. Ace Bailey slides to 5 with Utah. That was a little bit of a surprise that he ended up there, but not that he went at 5. Trey Johnson goes to 6. Jeremiah Fears at 7. The Brooklyn Nets drafted Igor Demin at 8. Probably overdrafted him. Colin Murray Boyles drafted at 9. Shout out South Carolina. And then you started to get some trades. You started to get some trades after that point where Phoenix, they had acquired the 10th pick in the draft from the Houston Rockets for the Kevin Durant trade. And they drafted Kaman Malawach, who's a strong Duke center, and then they immediately trade for another center in Mark Williams after trading from the same Charlotte Hornets team last year to go get Nick Richards. So I don't really know what the deal is with with Phoenix, man. They have all entirely like 5 shooting guards and 4 centers and maybe 4 wings on their roster, and that's it. Like, it's just a weird situation for them. Um, could it work out? I guess maybe, but like they traded the 29th pick and a future first round pick as well. If this is the way that they're going to get it done, I don't believe that they're going to do anything of significance at this point. Um, they're going to have to wait for a center to be good. Now, it could be like Derek Lively, who was immediately good for Dallas, and then they traded Luka Doncic anyway. But Derek Lively was immediately good. It showed immediate promise for them and somebody that they could really count on as a center. Maybe Malawach is like that. Maybe Phoenix improves in their pick and roll game. But I just think that the rest of their roster is going to be so piecey. Memphis and Portland made a trade in this draft. Memphis went to go get Cedric Coward. They needed some wings after, and like some higher ceiling guys potentially after trading Desmond Bane. So I thought that this was a pretty good move for them. Although we'll ultimately see what happens with that. Chicago, Noah Essengay, and then you get the big move around the NBA, which was New Orleans trading the 23rd pick and an unprotected first round pick next year, along with is the most favorable between New Orleans's and Milwaukee's pick for the 13th pick in this draft. They moved up 10 spots in this draft to go get Derek Queen, who is a versatile scoring center from Maryland. I don't know what he's ultimately going to be in the NBA. Not a good defender, not somebody that I think you could really count on to anchor your team. But to give up an unprotected pick to Atlanta, who's probably like, sure, absolutely. To give up an unprotected pick like that is crazy. And I just don't think that New Orleans really knew what they were getting themselves into. Now, we'll see whether that happens. Like maybe Zion Williamson is healthy. Maybe Trey Murphy is healthy. Maybe they get themselves back on track. Jordan Poole, tank commander himself, turns into win commander after they traded for him. And they ultimately get back into the playoff picture. And the pick that they give up is like the 17th pick or something like that. But that's like the ceiling, right? The floor is that they give up the number one pick of the draft because guys get hurt and they repeat last year and they win the lottery. Like that is a real world scenario that Atlanta just got for moving down 10 spots in this draft. So we'll see what happens. Atlanta gets Drake Powell. Or wait, no, they got Asa Newell, excuse me. Traded to Atlanta there. But I thought Atlanta did great in these last few days. They got Kristaps Porzingis. They got a potential big ticket item for next year. They've cleared off some space. They're going to get back Jalen Johnson. Doesn't look like they're bringing back Clint Capella. Seems like they are in a pretty good spot. So if you're looking for a team to kind of take some stock into next year, that would be one. Todd Houston asks in the comments, I got to know, Ryan, where was the pizza from at the Nuggets first round draft party at Ball Arena? Honestly, I didn't look at it that closely. It wasn't good though. I'm not gonna lie. It was not good. It was pretty subpar. It was like they got some garlic bread that was extremely oily. Cheese was a little bit too thick. But like, look, is what it is. You never complain about free pizza. That's never ever something that you're doing. So I'm not gonna stress about it. But I'll be back there tonight. If they get the same spot, then I'll let everybody know on the show. That's for sure. Hopefully it's not the same spot. Okay. Middle of the first round, 3 different centers drafted: Thomas Sorber, Yang Hansen, and Joan Beringer. Beringer, probably from France, who went to Minnesota. Hansen went to China, or from China, went to Portland, and then Thomas Sorber went to OKC. So 3 centers drafted in the middle of this draft, all to Northwestern teams. I thought that was very notable. I don't know if they're actually having Nikola Jokic in mind on something like that, but now you've got those 3 guys. You've got Walker Kessler in Utah. It just doesn't surprise me that these teams are really continuing to invest in Denver. And maybe that's a good sign for Nuggets fans that, yes, Jokic will sign an extension soon. Yes, he's going to be in Denver for a long, long time. This is not going to be something to stress yourself out about. That would be the hope. But yeah, a whole bunch of different young centers. That will be very interesting to see, and how soon those guys can be contributors for their teams. But if they're all investing in young centers, then maybe there's a window in these next couple of years for Denver to take advantage of the fact that they are so young. So we'll see what happens, but I thought that was notable, whether it's like in OKC. That wouldn't surprise me if that's ultimately a replacement for Jalen Williams in this upcoming season, where he has a team option, but they're going to probably try to reshape their roster a little bit. Maybe Jay Will is around, but wouldn't surprise me if they decided to go a different direction. And then for Hanson Yang, Portland's got like 5 centers on their roster, but 3 of them, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, and Duop Reith, they're not long for the position. I wouldn't expect them to be long-term fits. So it's Klingon and Jansen, or Yang Hansen, excuse me. And then Berenguer, French center, could be a replacement for Naz Reid, but also could be a long-term replacement for Rudy Gobert, who's getting up there in years. So I think that it's probably a good pick for Minnesota. I don't know anything about these guys. I'm not going to pretend to, but if that ultimately happens, then we'll see. Cody asks, Ryan, do you buy this Chinese Jokic hype? Sure, why not? Look, nobody's going to be Jokic. That would be crazy. But the actual, Jokic was drafted 41st overall, so teams taking a chance on a player like that is the kind of player and the kind of situation where you don't expect him to be very athletic. You don't expect him to be able to handle the modern speed and strength of the NBA. And then he just does. Then he just figures it out because he's got a processor for a brain. And this guy, he does seem to have some really impressive passing highlights. And I watched just a very short amount of clips on him. And he's got some good touch around the rim. That I think at least would really translate to this situation. So remember, Jokic didn't become Jokic for a while. There were signs, of course, but it'll be very interesting. I don't know what his age is at this point, but if he does, if they allow him to take his time at least a little bit, then look, you never know with these guys. You might as well take a swing if you can. If you see a guy that has that level of skill, and he does, he does seem to have more interior scoring and playmaking skill and post skill, then you might as well take advantage of it. Chris says he's more like Şengün than Yoke. If that's the case and they get Alper and Şengün, he just made an all-star team. So wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you're Portland on that front. So I'm never there are certain players, and I've kind of learned this now. I'm 28 years old. I've been not doing this for an extensive amount of time, but at least a decade. You never know when guys are going to work out and when they're not. There are some guys that you think will. There are some guys that you hear things and you assume will. But as soon as you assume that somebody works out, then they're going to bust. That's just how it's going to be. And the moment that you write somebody off, they might turn out to be way better than you expected. So I'm going to let them prove it in the NBA. There are certain processes that I am definitely against, trading your future first round pick in order to get somebody in this year. That's a horrible idea, especially for a team like the Pelicans that just won 20 games. But who knows? Maybe this is a different time. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss are there other NBA storylines that people want to talk about, and what happened to the crazy trades? What happened to the trades that didn't actually happen from a player perspective? Pretty quiet in the NBA. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. And we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Okay. Obviously, Denver did not do anything crazy. We'll see if they get involved tonight. It would not surprise me if they made a trade for somebody tonight, whether that is a second round pick of something. Shams just tweeted out that the Los Angeles Lakers are moving up in the second round, basically from 55 to 45. So now they're spending cash which means that they are incurring the second apron in order to do that, I'm pretty sure. So this is like that's actually one of those rules that people don't really know from the NBA. And I think I have this. If you spend cash at all, like in a trade, I think while you're in either the first apron or the second apron, you're just automatically incurring the second apron. Um, that's insane. It's an insane rule, and like the Lakers are going to be in the situation like they're trying to add talent to their team. If you were the Nuggets, that would be the mechanism for getting back into the draft. In most years, you would trade like a future top 55 protected second round pick and cash in order to buy one of these upcoming picks, or maybe it's the draft rights to is at Turkey Mez or whoever, and cash in order to trade for the 50th pick in the draft. That's what usually would happen in previous CBAs. I do not think that that is super viable, especially for a team like the Nuggets. So, like this is a problem. This is going to be very interesting for Denver. The way that if they were to do it in this draft, it would either be trading somebody like Jalen Pickett, it would be trading potentially um, Hunter Tyson and a future top 55 protected second round pick for something like that. I don't know if that's what I would do if I were them. Or you're trading a draft pick swap. It's something that I talked about with on Locked On last night with Matt Moore. That if you're Denver, could you justify trading one of your swaps? Like, let's say it's the 2030 first round pick swap. Let's say you send it to Charlotte, and Charlotte's like, "Hey, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. We don't need this pick. We don't need one of the second round picks going forward. We're going to trade that swap for multiple second round picks. Maybe it's two, maybe it's three, somewhere in that nature." And you decide, all right, we're going to go try to refill the coffin a little bit that Denver has because they don't have any second round picks until 2032. Shout out Calvin Booth. Um, whether it's that, whether it is trading an actual player, whether it's trading a first round pick and horcruxing it into several other picks, like the Suns, it's a move that the Suns made that I think the Nuggets have a consideration in making. Denver's got this 2031 first round pick. The Suns had a 2031 first round pick, and I think they traded it for a 2026, 2027, and 2029 first round pick, but all of those were pretty crappy. They just used them as kind of trade chips to allow themselves the flexibility to make the moves. Um, I'm not sure if that's what I would do if I was Denver, because like you could really sell that 2031 first round pick for a very positive like asset. But it is at least something that Denver, if you're trying to get involved in this draft, those are the ways to do it. Those are the ways to think about it. So I'm not really expecting it. Like I said, I actually think the big reason why Denver's not going to do it is because they have roster spot issues. They have 12 guys that are on roster right now, including Dario Saric, including Zeke Naji. Wouldn't necessarily put those guys in with the future alignment of the organization. Hunter Tyson, maybe you could say the same thing, but you've got the five starters. You've got Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, Deron Holmes, and then you get to Dario Saric, Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, guys that you probably don't think are going to be long term for your group. If you could move off of those guys, then yeah, sure, maybe getting involved in the second round is great. But to me, I think that the most important thing that Denver can do is keep those spots free for free agents that they can add, whether it's a taxpayer MLE guy, whether it's a couple of minimum guys taking a flyer on some players. You have to get as many hits as possible in order to at least have the possibility that your roster is going to be good enough, especially off the bench. So that's what I would do personally. But Who knows? We'll see what happens with this thing tonight. I'm not expecting anything. The only major news that I'm expecting from the Nuggets tonight is like, is anybody going to sign for a two-way? We got news about Trey Alexander and PJ Hall on draft night last year. So there is at least a possibility that you get involved with some two-way guys, and Denver can really sell that as a possibility for those guys. Who knows? Okay. Other NBA storylines, crazy trades. There weren't that many things, were there? Like, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. The craziest move, I think, like the only player trade that happened last night was Phoenix trading for Mark Williams. They traded Vasa Micic back to Charlotte, which heard from somebody last night that not exactly thrilled about like being in Charlotte the first time, and now he's got to go back there again. That sucks. So I got to imagine, actually, and Chris asks this. Let me just pivot back to this. Wasn't PJ Hall at the presser, so he must have been told he's coming back? Not necessarily. I think he is making a play for the Nuggets Summer League team once again. We'll try to make an impression there. Continue to try to make an impression to the like the front office that the Nuggets have in place. I'm trying to get another contract. So I don't know if anything is done. I do think that he will be part of the Nuggets Summer League team. Also, a couple of guys that will also probably be a part of their Summer League team. Deron Holmes will certainly be there. I do not think that Jalen Pickett's going to be there. I think Hunter Tyson might be, but haven't clarified that quite yet. He probably actually won't be. And then Trey Alexander is also going to be there for sure. There's also a couple of other sleepers that like Denver's got in the pipeline, including a veteran name that I'm not going to share here because I told somebody that I wouldn't share it, but a name that people will remember for sure. So just keep in mind, like Denver is doing some digging here. They are going high and low, trying to get creative with some things. But I do think that there's at least a world where Denver kind of does some interesting stuff to get their roster back on track. Yeah, no real crazy NBA trades. Mark Williams was the only player to seriously move last night. Will that change going forward? Probably not. Like Cam Johnson was a move that I think a lot of people were thinking might happen. Andrew Wiggins has been on the trade block for sure. Miami's been rumored to try to be going to get Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not really sure how they do that financially, but they're in the rumor for it. That's for sure. They're going to have to make some moves in order to allow that to happen, whether that is a Terry Rozier trade, good luck, or an Andrew Wiggins trade, good luck. So we'll see what happens with them. But I'm not really seeing a lot of activity and excitement from the rest of the NBA. It felt pretty quiet. I'm not going to lie. There were some interesting moves, obviously, that were made, and some teams came out of this and looked pretty good on the other side. I think Utah did pretty well for themselves, getting Ace Bailey and getting Walter Clayton Jr. I think like Atlanta obviously came out looking pretty good. The Kings traded in to go get Nick Clifford, who is a Colorado State player, played at Colorado before. He is a versatile kind of Swiss Army knife wing. So somebody that I think most Nuggets or some Nuggets fans will definitely know. There were some interesting names that went, but nothing really insane. Like a lot of the picks got moved. Like you actually looking at the list of draft picks that got traded is pretty wild. The picks that didn't get traded were the top 9. 12 did not get traded. 28 did not get traded. Every other first round pick got traded. Every single one at some point during this process. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. So 19 of the 30 picks in the first round of the draft got traded, at least like over the course of these last few years leading up to this moment. So everything got crazy. So it's you just never know how this thing's going to work out. But that's the modern NBA that we're at this point. Brooklyn had 5 picks that they made. Utah actually traded away, or not Utah. Yeah, Utah had some picks. They will continue to pick. Washington got involved. OKC traded away one because their roster is just so like stuffed to the brim right now. Like all of the picks are kind of condensed into 5 or 6 teams. It's wild to think about. Yeah, it's kind of odd, kind of an odd situation to be in. Not as like not as interesting as I was hoping for, if I'm being honest. I thought that there were going to be some fireworks, thought that there were going to be some starters that were moved. Mark Williams may not even start for like Phoenix. He probably will, but there's at least a world where he doesn't. So if Denver were to get involved, maybe there are some guys at the end of the that didn't get drafted in the first round that might be interesting for them. Rasheer Fleming's a name that I've heard, not for Denver specifically, but just as a name that people like. There is a Serbian, Markovic, who is in this draft, who's 9th in the best available rankings on ESPN. Ryan Kalkbrenner is a name, Creighton, big center that I think a lot of people are thinking about. And then there's a couple of other names that will probably be available, but we will see what happens, folks. I am not expecting much, as I mentioned. Can't stress that enough because everybody wants to be super active at this point. I don't think that it's a bad thing that Denver's not that active, that they don't have the flexibility. Like, it could be very much worse. I'm worried about the future rounds in future years where Denver doesn't have that many picks then either. But right now they don't need to refill their roster with young talent. They need like the right veterans around that group to get themselves over the top. So we'll see what happens going forward. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Mile High Sports. Actually, okay. Cedric says, when do we pick in the first round? 2026, 2028, 2030, 2032. Yeah, that's the years that Denver has their draft picks. I would not be too worried. Like, Denver will have a pick next year. If they're not great, then they'll have access to it. It'll be fine. This is just how the Stepien rule works at this point. So we'll see. All right. That is going to do it, as I said, for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports. Thank you for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll be back tomorrow to just recap everything once again. And if there is something that happens, then you'll hear it from me. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day. We'll talk to you guys very soon.